Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Hey, good
Hey,
morning.
everyone. Thanks for viewing. What on earth are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we were thinking, should we go down the Scrum path some more or not? And then you brought up this really interesting link. Magnus says, like, what about the human beings in the work process, in the value delivery, and how important is that to what we do and what we need to deliver? And in Scrum, we talk a lot about value delivery. So how important are people individually and as a group
Hmm,
to that delivery? Do I word are those the right words? To
I
or
don't. There are no right words. I think that sounds like what we were talking about last time. We started with a very high level talk about Scrum, but we found ourselves so energized by it that we thought it would be a good idea to continue on Scrum. So let's see where this ends up. I think the I'm so fascinated by modern neuroscience, neurobiology, and how do we work? How does our brain work? And I think I said to you now that it's like Scrum. We're working on a problem. We have a sprint. There's a value proposition or something. We set a sprint goal, and then we do that, and it goes up and down. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not equally good, and there was some mishaps. And then we end up in a retrospective, and we look at that, and when we look at the inspected elements. And although, please help me out here, we should evaluate people and relations, something.
Mhm.
I often find it's a bit shallow. And I think a metaphor might be helpful. It's a bit like our agenda. We get we don't see the forest because of all the trees. When we look at what we've done, we start to look at the work only. Maybe a bit complicated customers. It's like we are observing something outside the team, be it the work or the other humans. But it's not like when you're maybe, I don't know, about a football pitch, you do the game, and it's really hard to have the third person perspective at the same time. But I imagine the pro footballers do. They observe and then they can see it. Oh, that's what I did. I didn't realize that.
Mhm.
It's my experience that we're all often in like a blind spot. What did I do? And it requires courage because we are so used to be me. I know who I am and I'm just operating automatically, and we know who we are and we are just behaving. And we don't really notice how that affects, how hugely it impacts the work. So I will sip it. Any thoughts?
Yeah. The thing is, now you touch upon the football metaphor, right? It's what happens in football and in professional football, but it's going into the lower leagues as well, is that the games are taped. People do video recordings of the game, and there are video analysts in professional football. There are video analysts watching the game, and then they take highlights out of the game, and players watch the videos as well. So they do a they really can see a retrospect of what they're doing. And I think it's a really interesting metaphor because in most of the work or knowledge work we cannot video ourselves, and but how would we like, I think that thought is really great, right? It's the thought that if we could mentally zoom out and rewatch the video of, let's say, in Scrum the last sprint, like what happened and where were our tactical mistakes, and like what can we do, like what can we do to do better, or something hit us, like the opposing team did something we didn't expect. So how do we adapt? How did we adapt it or not to that? And how can we learn from that? And so I think it's a really interesting. I love that metaphor now thinking of it, like because that's what happens in football. The game is recorded on video from different angles, and then that video is analyzed to see how we can improve in the future.
Yeah. And I imagine that it's all like because it offers a different vantage point. it holds the promise of new insight. Oh, so from that angle, this is what happens. I did not see that because of my behavior and the way I moved and was available to the ball or not. Oh, so that happens on your side. Oh, didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I was thinking something else here as well. In the heat of the moment. So imagine in a Scrum team, and then you have a, I don't know, maybe you have a refinement or something. Normally, you're very engaged in that type of problem, like or understanding the needs, possibly what is the need behind here, and then you might further venture in. So, what is there any idea we have on different solutions, and how do we know which one we want to go with? And then the time's over, and we have reached a result. And how often do we ask ourselves? How often do we observe? Hey, actually, there was one person that was silent. Or maybe if it's the one that usually talks that is silent, then we notice it. But if it's usually then the one that doesn't say much, is just doing what he or she always does, we don't notice it. Maybe the Scrum Master does. And at the retrospective, the Scrum Master might mirror and like provide that same thing. And there's no shame in this because it's really hard to be in the game and notice both myself and the others at the same time that we're trying to really put our cognitive focus on complicated problems. So there's like a you cannot keep it all in your brain thing. But I think we have a huge impact on the end results. We humans. You're nodding. Maybe a
Yeah,
bit thoughtfully I make up.
it's yeah. There's a lot of thoughts going around this. The big word that's on top of my brain now is awareness. It's
Awareness,
about
yeah.
um, like you mentioned the Scrum Master. Yeah, as a Scrum Master, being aware of all these things, looking at these patterns, is part of your job, and
Oh,
it's not always easy, yeah, because when it in the heat of the moment, there's a fire there, and we zoom into the fire, and then the helicopter. When we zoom, the second we zoom in, the helicopter view is gone, which might lead to us losing that awareness. But also the awareness within the team, individual awareness about myself and my surroundings, but also the team being aware about the rest of the team. That's a really big thing, because if we want to come to that point, like, hey, that person has been silent now for 2 or 3 weeks, we haven't really heard him. He has worked or she has worked, but like, what's going on? That requires, yeah, space, a safe space, but also mental space, I think, to bring that to your mind and then back to the group. That was my main thought, actually.
yeah. Now we're looking at talking about the Scrum Master role, and we're suggesting a mirroring function, awareness raiser.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that we say that being silent is bad or good. We're just observing. We're not saying that someone that is a particular type of way cannot be autonomous. No, I mean to say something else probably. That you have your mandate to decide for yourself what you if you want to engage or not. But it's like a question. What would it look like if we tried a different game? That's type of inquiry to put brains into exploration, curiosity.
Mm-hmm. I love how you link this again to the role of the Scrum Master, right? Because really strongly believe that the key role of a Scrum Master is to create transparency, and transparency is one of the three Scrum pillars, right? You can
Hmm.
transparency, inspection, adaptation, and you cannot inspect without transparency. And I think one of the beautiful things you can do as a Scrum Master, but also this is an invitation for anyone who has a leadership role or even in a team, bring your observation, bring you call it mirroring, mirror to the team what you've seen. Like, this is what I've seen. This is my observation.
Mm.
And then it's really without judgment. It might not be 100% objective, but that doesn't matter. Like, this is the observation that I've seen, and then we have a conversation on the observation. Is my observation correct? If it is correct or not, and following on that, like, do we need to do something with it? Is there something that triggers us in that observation that we should tackle? And then as a Scrum Master, you can say, I find it important that we should tackle that, but still also look at that in a team. And then, yeah, going further than only the Scrum Master, I think it's really beautiful when you reach a point where anyone in the team can mirror or can bring that type of observation. And then we have that conversation.
Yeah, you know, I I need to throw in a flame bait, Jira. So then, if you're viewing this and somewhat agreeing or not recognizing yourself at all, at least you can observe that this is very different than a job ad. As a Scrum Master, you will manage or work the Jira blah blah tooling. And to me, well, not necessarily going into whether Jira is good or bad, it's just like a on the list of needed competences. It's my experience and best understanding also of the Scrum guide, and it's so far down the priorities of what you need to learn. In fact, Jira is like the simple problem, a very easy problem compared with the other skills. Yeah. To be observing in the heat of the moment and offer another perspective. Because we are a cross-functional team and we are here to produce value. You should probably have had a really good startup with really exploring how we think about value production, how we define it, and if we are thinking differently about it. And then we seek to help each individual maximize their potential within that guiding light and in our interaction as a team. And placing it that way, the Scrum Master, of course, needs to figure out how can I serve in line with the value we said we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about intervening or tweaking people to a certain direction unless it's needed to suggest that, hey team, how do you maturely see this? Is this behaviors according to your best understanding promoting or maybe not so good for the thing we said we want to do? I noticed in that heated moment, we rushed the decision, and it seemed to me like 3 people were never part of the discussion, and there was not even a check, is everybody online with this? Do anyone see a problem? And as it turned out, you know, we did a mistake. If you look at it, I mean, that's fine. Maybe it could not be avoided, but what if? And so then the teams maybe engage in a discussion, and it might be difficult. I received the feedback to become personal. Do you know, Magnus, that sometimes when you're in an argument and you start, and then if someone wants to say, you continue and you raise your voice, like you raise the level, and you go like this, and it makes me feel like very excluded. It's like oh, I don't know the English word. Well, a trick to dominate people.
Yeah.
And it's not. I didn't even know that I did that. I honest to God, did not know. And it's extremely out of integrity and value and my self-image. And yet, I did it. And this is who we are. And to say something like this, well, it's not a start or up conversation, right? It's not like talking about whether or something not sensitive. This is deeply personal, and it's addressing my ego and my self-image, and potentially I might be very upset or hurt. And so the person saying this feedback, right? Or vice versa, my behavior has triggered wounds such that instead of trying to solve it, we move away. Just an example. Now, work is work, and we're here to do software programming maybe, or in a Scrum team. So I'm not that interested in these types of questions, Magnus. And I want to focus on other things. What about software quality and database performance and all that stuff? Yes, but consider.
Yep.
Consider the huge impact the human factor has for you to be a great team, or like a really great team at the peak of your possibility, to be developing and evolving as human beings. Consider.
That last part was for me, it's such a good wrap of your thoughts right there, right? Um, how does my interaction with other people affect our delivery, our value delivery?
Yeah.
How does your behavior or how does my behavior affect, you said software quality, like how does this affect our software quality? Because maybe somebody wants to ask me a question about software quality, but I'm never available. I always wave them away, say I don't have time for that, I don't have time for that, and then software quality suffers because that person didn't know something and didn't get an answer about it. And those are the things. Yeah, that's the human interaction part, and pausing when it needed, or pausing regularly about that, I think is a really good idea. And you kind of, for me, in what you just said, Magnus, you kind of hinted towards a team performance, or even high performing teams. And research shows that in high performing teams, that human factor is even more important than the technical and knowledge factor. The technical knowledge factor is there, right? It has weight, but how people interact, how we interact with each other, is even slightly more important than that. Um, and then to the beginning of your thoughts, you said, I'm not conscious about my behavior. This is something that grew on you, or it's a muscle memory from whatever happened in your life, and this is the way you behave without even knowing it. But people giving you that feedback and that observation, I think, is a gift. And yeah, people might take it personal, and I'm very sure that some people will take it personal. But if we pause for a second before we react to that feedback, and consider this is a gift for me to become a better person, a better colleague, maybe first within the context of what we need to do, but also a better person. And honestly, when I translate that now to myself, especially since I've been working in team coaching and agile coaching and Scrum Mastering, I really grew as a person, because that triggers me to become more open to feedback. And yeah, if people say some things about me that I am doing wrong, it doesn't feel nice. Sometimes even my stomach cringes a bit, but it's still the gift of, hey, I wasn't aware of that, and maybe that's hurting you or that's hurting the team, and I should be more conscious. And there we are again. The word consciousness and awareness is there again. We make ourselves conscious.
Consciousness and awareness, and as we are speaking now, I notice this voice or this memory. But work is work. We're here to do work, and this all this we should feel good and be happy at work nonsense. We are here to produce. Yes, I hear you, but remember again, this was anchored in the value production, the value we said we want to do, the reason why we chose to be at this particular company doing this particular work. You had your free will joining, and you then agreed upon this is the value. Or maybe you didn't never had that conversation, then you have a dysfunctional organization. You're not really started up properly. Now it's your opportunity. Have a sit down in your team. What is ultimately the reason we exist? What is the value we produce? Is it money for our shareholders, or is it something with our users? How do we define that value? And if it's hard to define, if it doesn't come out cleanly, like, oh, our reason for being is that we want to automate and make smooth the collaboration in schools and administrations, make it really easy so they can focus on teaching our kids. That's the software we want to build. It shall be beautiful in every touch. Unless you're very clear on that type of discussion, you don't know your value production. If you don't know that, how are you going to judge whether you need to address the gameplay you have between each other? Then it becomes opinion, right? I don't like certain behaviors because that's who I am, and then that's a free for all because who can say?
Yeah. So if I get it well that the alignment as a group about what we want to achieve, the alignment around the purpose, the goal, the value that we want to achieve, also influences our behavior, the way we interact with each other.
That's my hypothesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems very reasonable. We can observe certain pro footballers again, and sometimes they have like the best individuals on paper, but halfway in the season they keep on losing and underperforming.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a new trainer or something, and suddenly next game they start winning. What is that? I mean, it's much more about mindset and culture and attitude. So it makes a difference, and they are probably there to win the games.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
it's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm done. I'm done. I think it's time to wrap.
Oh yeah, it's too bad that it's time to wrap because the football metaphor triggers me in about three or four
Yeah.
directions again.
Okay, but then let's
Um,
continue. Maybe not wrapping.
um, like
Who made up this rule about 20 minutes? Break it.
yeah, of course. Break the rules and make them better. So you in football we say you can buy a team, right? You can put all these individual stars together, but that doesn't necessarily create a team. And then I'm thinking of all these team models. How do you bring teams together, like Tuckman model or the findings from Google Aristotle projects or the five dysfunctions of a team of Lencioni? They all boil down to the same thing, like how do you create a team that keep each other accountable, etc., etc., etc. Where the basis is trust. We need to learn the different points of view and the thoughts and the characters, and they all come together. But then how can it be besides that, like a team is not working and then a new coach comes in and then it suddenly it clicks? So there's something else than bringing the people together as people is important, but also that person that gives a really clear purpose and direction and a really clear framework to work in. And then I think that for me triggers my definition of autonomy. My definition of autonomy is that we are aligned on the purpose. This is the direction that we go, and it's not there, it's there, but we go there within this framework. Like I think that's what a football coach does, right? It's like we want to play beautiful attacking football, but these are the positions that we're going to fill. This is we play a 3-5-2 or 4-4-2 or whatever you want to call it. But these are my guide, the guardrails in English. This is our goal, and these are the guardrails. And within that, I let you go. I trust you as a team to click together and to do the right thing and to keep each other accountable. And so those are the thoughts that you triggered with what you were saying. So the human connection as a team is super important, but also the leadership role to bring us into alignment about this is what we're going to do. These are the guardrails, and let's do that. And then making people go in that direction.
Yeah. It's really easy and it's really hard. You make me think of Pia Sundhage. She is and was head coach for the USA national team in soccer. I have to say that because of the American way of saying it, but football. And they got a gold. I want to say Olympics. I'm not sure. 10 years ago or so, I listened to her giving a speech as she was taking over the Swedish national team. She had a couple of phrases like, we make each other good, we are each other's environment. But she described ultimately uh, 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 one of her happiest moments because she was engaging in coaching and trying to bring out that thing she saw in people, the potential not lived. And so had coaching. And then she experimented, as I remember it, 3 coaching, she and 2 others. And she said, one of the more beautiful moments was when this person suddenly they started to coach each other and I was just sitting there. And the language was, hey, you know what? In this types of situation, and you do typically like this, what I would think work out better if you could do that instead, because then I can do this. What do you think? And so they were elevating their ability to raise their awareness together in a language that is digestible, and everyone's aligning on this is what we need to do. We understand each other's roles, but we win as a team, and we constantly seek to be better playing together. Relentlessly, aggressively, and with a loving heart.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, football, it's about kicking the ball. Yes, of course. There's a lot of skills, the actual skills. Bless you.
Right.
But ultimately, if you want to go from like normal or good to be really good, you need to focus on the human aspect. Be curious.
Yes.
That's my wrap. But maybe you want to continue. Maybe there's
No, no,
more.
no. I think it's a really good wrap. I think the conclusion is it's how we got to this topic, right? Aligning around the goal, the purpose, the value we need to deliver is important. So getting clarity around that is important, because that will help us also to align on a human level, connect with each other. And then together with that, both as a leader in a leadership role, but also as a team member, we can create awareness and consciousness about our behavior towards each other and from each other, which then
Yes.
will elevate. And I like that word. It will elevate us again. We will elevate each other by making each other better people, and by that being better at delivering what we need to deliver. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I'm really sure, because this is my invitation for people who to have a look at what high performing teams do. Not only high performing sports teams, but also high performing any other profession teams. Like, what are the perks of those teams? And I'm pretty sure that you will come kind of to the conclusion we just made as well. And so, but I'm really, any other thoughts, please share them with us, because we're also very curious. What do you think? So let us know.
Yeah. My wrap is like this again. It offers a more holistic approach. Think of it possibly like a backlog, your retro and your improvements. Now, anchored in that value, you might find that one or more valuable actions that would give us leverage is not more practice on the technical side, but it's on the human side, or vice versa. Don't blindly go into, focusing only on feel good. That's not what we're saying here. Thanks for viewing. Do share your thoughts. Guide us where we missed out on something important, or salute us if we did something good. Thanks for viewing. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.